Jim Armstrong, of course, has been doing just a masterful job of covering this trial from day one of jury selection. He is now live outside of the courthouse. Jim, I know you were inside when the verdict came down, when Dzhokhar Tsarnaev learned that he would be put to death. Please just give us any type of picture that you can of how this all went down.
David, just picture absolute silence in this courtroom from the moment everyone sat down. A little bit of chatter, a little bit of anxious whispering. When he came in, it was actually faster than normal. What tends to happen is the U.S. Marshals have what we say is a bit of a secret knock on the side door. They rap on the door 2 or 3 times. Tsarnaev is let in. That happened very fast today. In fact, I had my head down. I looked up, and there he was right in front of me. He took his seat and really didn't say anything at all to defense counsel. About a minute or so later, the jury comes in. By coincidence, I assume several of them were dressed in black today and also dressed more formally than they usually are. I counted at least 5 of them in black. The forewoman, I believe, was in navy blue. One juror struck me. He's dressed pretty casually throughout the entire trial. Today, he didn't just wear a black shirt, but he wore a tie as well. He'd never dressed that formally before. What the judge does is ask the forewoman if she could please hand over the verdict envelope. So it's, of course, it doesn't say specimen on it like my copy does, but it's a 24-page verdict form inside the envelope. Silence in the courtroom. What struck me then, the judge ripped the paper, ripped the envelope open, so that sound sort of filled the courtroom. He then takes it out, and you could hear his microphone catch the sound of page after page flipping as he reviewed it. And then it goes to the clerk. At that point, all of the jury remains standing. The gallery is seated. Prosecutors seat themselves. And then Tsarnaev and his defense team stand. At this point, it was 2 lawyers, Judy Clark and Miriam Conrad on either side, 3 other lawyers behind him. We were all warned, both by the judge's clerk as well as by the court officers, that any show of emotion whatsoever, any outburst, any reaction audible, would be immediate cause for contempt of court, and you would be let out of the courtroom as well. I have to tell you, during the course of the entire verdict being read, there wasn't a word spoken. A couple of times, though, I have to say I did hear some gasps of air inward, people surprised. They were surprised when we got to the mitigating factors when they saw how few jurors, if I remember 2 or 3 at the most, believed Tamerlan Tsarnaev was responsible for planning and executing the Boston Marathon bombing. Of course, you'll remember, that was the entire crux, more or less, of the defense's case, that Dzhokhar was just a hapless younger brother, strong-armed, almost literally, by his older brother, forced to do these things. This jury didn't buy that argument at all. That was the only real cause for emotion, if you could even call it that, from the gallery, where some people sort of an intake of breath indicating a little bit of surprise. Now, I was in the courtroom. I sit right behind Dzhokhar, about 10 feet behind him. Our producer, Ken Tucci, was in the overflow courtroom, which actually has, in some cases, today being perhaps one of them, a slightly better view because there's a camera next to the judge that faces out towards Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. It's a very wide view, so you can't get a great look at him, but you can certainly see the front of his face. From what I could see behind him, he just stared straight forward, and that was all we saw from Dzhokhar. Ken Tucci, our producer in overflow, says he could see Tsarnaev's face, and it registered, from what he could tell, absolutely no emotion at all.
Jim, stay right there if you would. We want to ask you some more questions about what happened today, but we also want to put up a statement. Mayor Walsh just releasing this statement. I want to thank the jurors and the judiciary for their service to our community and our country. We will forever remember and honor those who lost their lives and were affected by those senseless acts of violence on our city. Again, this is Mayor Walsh releasing a statement that Boston is a city of hope, strength, and resilience that can overcome any challenge, unquote.
And we are waiting to hear from the governor. He is expected to speak at 4 o'clock, so just a couple of minutes out. We will get to that news conference with the governor, but let's bring Jim Armstrong back in. And Jim, at this point, we don't know, or I guess we do know, that 6 of 17 counts they were unanimous on. But are we going to get at some point sort of a scorecard of each count?
Right.
Are we going to get that?
Yes, we will, David. The short answer to your question is yes. The long, difficult answer is we don't yet have a timetable about when that's going to happen. After the first phase of this trial, we actually got the verdict slip and the check marks that were on it and the signature of the forewoman. The signature was redacted, so her identity would be kept a secret. But we did get that. It didn't tell us very much because it was all largely yes, no, guilty, not guilty. This next slip, when it is revealed, should in fact give us a little bit more information about what the breakdown of these votes were. A scorecard is probably an accurate way to describe it. It's up to the judge, however, when we get to see that information.
Let's talk a bit about the emotion in that courtroom. I mean, I think we all have this mental picture of people almost holding their breath while they await the reading of this verdict. And then reading your tweets, the sort of overwhelming outpouring of emotion on some people's parts, however quietly. Describe that scene, if you would.
I think, as with everything that's had to do with this case and the events leading up to it, people sort of handle this differently. I was, I guess, a little bit surprised to look over in my row, but a few people down, and see Bill and Denise Richard. She cried, I remember, awaiting the first phase's verdict. For this verdict, however, she and her husband both sat stone-faced, calm, paying close attention to what was happening. They both, she sort of sits like this with her hands on her chin looking forward, and Mr. Richard sort of sits like this and leans forward as well. Pretty much everybody to my left, that's the section of the courtroom reserved for survivors and victims' families and friends. That was generally how they all looked. Very intense, very stoic, all looking forward. Immediately to my left was law enforcement, same response as you could imagine from them, intensity but not showing much emotion. To my right, however, is the public seating, and the first couple rows of that public seating section is reserved for the defense team. When Tsarnaev's aunts and cousins testified, that's where they took their seats for a short time after they testified. Today, no friends or family there. But that's where I saw the most emotion. Several people, I'm guessing, I haven't been introduced to them, but I've seen them a lot. They are the support staff for this legal team. Many of them were in tears, crying openly after the verdict was read. But by and large, from everybody else, as respectful as the judge himself had requested. But, I mean, incredibly intense. I mean, I would struggle to put into words just how intense the courtroom was. I'd happily admit that I was quite literally shaking as it was coming out. I mean, I'm worried, curious about the verdict itself, worrying about being able to tweet it all out, get all the information out to you so you know what's happening, plus the intensity of the moment. Plus, again, there's Dzhokhar Tsarnaev about to find out if he's going to live or he's going to die. Intense is a word that doesn't do it justice.
All right, Jim Armstrong, it's 4 o'clock now. We want to reset with our